what's up guys, how's it going? This is Chris Newman with DroneProAcademy.com, and today we're going to be putting the MAVIC Mini versus MAVIC Air to help you decide which series you should invest in. And the reason that we're comparing them is because a ton of people are wondering if the newer, cheaper MAVIC Mini is good enough for the price point compared to the MAVIC Air. But specifically, I wanted to know if I could get good cinematic shots with the MAVIC Mini. Now, before we start, just know that I was not given these drones by DJI or anybody else to review, so this is a completely unbiased comparison. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is the price. The MAVIC Mini standalone costs about $399, and the Fly More combo, which comes with 2 extra batteries, a triple charger, prop guards, and carrying bag, come in at $499. The MAVIC Air comes in at $919 standalone, and the Fly More combo costs $1,149. So the MAVIC Mini easily wins on price. Okay, next up is weight and size. The MAVIC Air weighs in at 430 grams and the MAVIC Mini weighs in at a staggering 249 grams. That's nothing. That means that according to the FAA, it does not need to be registered with them. So this is a huge plus and another win for the MAVIC Mini. Next up is flight time. The MAVIC Air is rated at 21 minutes, whereas the MAVIC Mini comes at a mind-blowing 30 minutes at sea level. During our test, we flew in the mountains at 6,800 feet above sea level, and the MAVIC Air needed to come down for fresh batteries a lot more often than the MAVIC Mini did. So I'd say this is a huge win for the MAVIC Mini. Okay guys, next up is top speed. The MAVIC Air's top speed in sport mode at sea level in 0 mile an hour wind conditions is rated at 42.5 miles an hour. The MAVIC Mini top speed in sport mode is rated at 29 miles an hour. We did some drag races at 6,800 feet and the MAVIC Air looks and sounds like a Ferrari in the air. So if you need to follow faster objects such as vehicles or fly faster in general, then the MAVIC Air is the choice for you. Okay, next up is the max range distance capabilities. The MAVIC Air and the MAVIC Mini both are rated by DJI at 2.48 miles. However, sometimes when flying even 2,000 feet away, I would sometimes start to lose signal and get choppy video on the MAVIC Mini, whereas the Air felt really strong and solid the farther that I got away. So I'd say that definitely the MAVIC Air wins out on this one. Okay, next up is obstacle avoidance. This feature has become standard on the more recent DJI drones. The MAVIC Air is equipped with forward, backward, and downward sensors, whereas the MAVIC Mini is only equipped with downward only. And that's used for landing and keeping its position when you're flying without GPS. But I have to say, be very, very careful. If you're just learning how to fly, you can easily get into trouble and crash. And so make sure that you play it safe. Okay, next we're gonna talk about is the lenses, the focal length on both drones. So the MAVIC Air and the MAVIC Mini are both 24 millimeters in the 35 millimeter format equivalent. So I noticed that they're not exactly the same, but they're very, very close. And in my opinion, 24 millimeters is kind of a good overall length for your drone to get kind of good shots. That's not too close, it's not too wide. I think it's a good all-around focal length to have. So I'd say that they're definitely a draw in this category. Okay, next up is the camera quality and frame rate options. Both cameras on the MAVIC Air and MAVIC Mini both feature a 1.5.3 inch CMOS sensor with 12 megapixels. The MAVIC Air features a max video bitrate of 100 megabits per second resolution up to 4K and frame rates of 120 frames per second at 1080p. It also shoots RAW and JPEG photos at the 4K resolution. Now the MAVIC Mini also features a 1.5.3 CMOS sensor with the same 12 megapixels. However, it only shoots a super low 40 megabits per second and only offers up to 2.7K video. It also limits you to 25 frames per second and 30 frames per second frame rate with no 24 frame per second offered. It shoots 4K JPEG photos, no RAW option is offered. So as far as frame rate options and bit rate, on paper then the MAVIC Air is the clear winner here. However, let's put the MAVIC Air and the MAVIC Mini side by side and see how they compare footage-wise up close. Okay, so this is a non-scientific test. We put the drones up in the air, we kind of point them at the same spots. We use the same exact histograms, made sure that all the settings were as close as possible to make sure our exposures matched, and then we took some videos and photo samples. What I discovered actually blew my mind. When I zoom into the images on the MAVIC Mini versus MAVIC Air test, it actually seems that the MAVIC Mini puts out a sharper, clearer image and looked really, really good. Now keep in mind that the Mini does not allow you to change the settings in regard to color profile, white balance, and that stuff. It's all done automatically. But it seems to beat the Mavic in clarity, sharpness, and dynamic range. I fully expected to see a very clear winner here for the Mavic Air, since the bitrate is 100 megabits per second and the Mavic Mini is only 40 megabits per second. I also compared the raw photo sample I took from the Mavic Air to the JPEGs of the Mavic Air and the Mini, and it actually looked much closer to the Mavic Mini JPEG. So this just totally blows my mind. I was not expecting this. I cannot believe it. I can't believe I'm saying that the Mavic Mini actually beats out the Mavic Air in video quality, in my opinion. Once again, this was not a super scientific test. We matched the settings up as close as possible. I cannot believe what I'm seeing here. So definitely the Mavic Mini, I think, just out of the box has the edge here. Next up is how do the drones do in wind conditions? The Mavic Air is rated at 23.61 mile per hour wind, and the Mavic Mini is rated at 17.9 mile an hour wind in sport mode. So I feel like the extra weight and the speed capabilities of the Mavic Air really give it a much more solid feeling when flying in the wind. The Mavic Mini definitely seems like it feels every little bit of wind, and once I got close to the mountaintops, I was actually afraid the wind might take me over the top and I might not be able to get it back. So the Mavic Air definitely wins this round. Okay, next up we're going to look at the camera controls and the ability to get smooth cinematic shots. This is truly one of the most important things to me as a filmmaker, a cinematographer, and a drone pilot. I want to be able to get those cinematic shots. Now fortunately, both the Mavic Air and the Mavic Mini have the ability to customize the tilt speed. Both also have something called cinematic mode. This allows you to more easily get those super smooth cinematic shots without jerking too much. This is one of the most important features to me because I just gotta get those cinematic shots. So I'd say this is a draw in this category. Both drones are very capable of getting nice smooth shots. Okay, now so a big question for me when I was looking at the Mini was setting exposure, how that process works. And we're gonna look at the menus a little bit and tell you specifically how that happens. So as you can see on the Mavic Air, you have the standard screen, and you just basically set your exposure by setting your shutter and your ISO to get your proper exposure. On the Mavic Mini, however, you don't have the ability to set the individual parameters. Instead, it automatically sets the exposure and you just adjust the EV, which stands for exposure value. The exposure value is a number that represents a combination of the shutter speed and the f-stop. So you basically just let it automatically set the exposure, and then you can adjust the EV up or down to the required exposure, and then you lock it down by tapping on the lock icon. This means that your exposure will not be going up and down all over the place while you're tilting up into the sky or looking down into darker places as your lighting conditions change. At first, I was kind of reluctant to use this method of exposure. I wasn't sure I'd like it very much, but I actually found that it's super fast, really easy just to bang it up there, just to make it happen, and it worked really, really well. So overall, I'd say that both ways of setting exposure work great, and so I'd say it's a draw in this category. Okay, so next up is build quality. The Mavic Air seems heavier and more solidly built, whereas the Mini just seems like it's kind of a shell of plastic. I say the Mavic Air is definitely a better build quality for sure. Okay, now on to noise levels. While we were flying the drones, the sound difference was very noticeable. The Mavic Mini seemed much quieter compared to the Mavic Air. But let's get a little more technical. So this test was with my decibel meter behind the camera, with the drones flying the exact same distance away. So the Mavic Air came in at 79 to 81 decibels, and the Mavic Mini came in at 73 to 75. So I'd say definitely a win for the Mavic Mini here. Okay, next up is the internal storage capabilities. The Mavic Air has 8 gigabytes of internal storage, which is great for when you forget your cards and you need that extra space after you've filled up your cards after a day's shooting. The Mavic Mini, however, does not have internal storage at all. So I'd say the Mavic Air wins this battle. Okay, next up is the quick shot modes. Both the Mavic Air and the Mavic Mini have quick shot smart modes. We tested the Droney, Rocket, Circle, and Helix mode. Both of them performed really well in all of these modes, but keep in mind that there's no sensors on the sides of these drones, and we almost crashed into trees on the Circle mode and the Helix mode, and we had to cancel the maneuvers. By the way, to cancel the maneuver, just simply move your controller stick or select cancel in the app. I'd say it's probably best to not even attempt these modes unless it's totally open around the area, there's no trees or buildings. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty much a draw. There is a few additional capabilities that the Mavic Air has in that regard, but it's pretty similar. Okay, so now we're gonna test our low light capabilities. This test is kind of tricky since the MAVIC Mini uses auto settings to set the initial exposure. For this test, we presented a low light situation, then we maxed out the capabilities of both drones as far as low light. So looking at both results, it appears that the MAVIC Mini was able to achieve a brighter picture, and it also appears to be less muddy than the MAVIC Air. So even though the higher bit rate, I'm thinking the MAVIC Mini wins out in the low light category. Okay guys, so there you have it, the MAVIC Mini versus the MAVIC Air. The results are very close, but what are the most important features you need in a drone? I'd say definitely flight time, portability, camera quality. So, which one should you buy? And that totally depends on what you're going to use it for. And I think the main question you need to ask yourself is what quality footage is good enough for your purposes? If you're using it for personal use, real estate, web projects that don't require 4K, then the MAVIC Mini is a fantastic choice. If you need the extra frame rates, the speed, the distance, then the MAVIC Air might be a better choice for you. So personally, I'm really digging the MAVIC Mini. It's capable of really nice cinematic shots. It's super small, lightweight, portable. It puts out really great images, which really surprised me. But yeah, so that's what I'm leaning towards myself. Also guys, if you'd like to learn about how to make cinematic images with your small drone, check out my MAVIC Mini course right here. And then also, if you want to learn my top cinematic drone tips, check out my free online drone training here. But that's it from me guys. Don't forget, if you like this video, please subscribe. And if you have any further questions, please let me know.